Hello everybody, Linker here and welcome to my Legends Championship guide. In this one we look over my personal run, even managed to beat a 5 times regional champion to learn how does this format work, what's so special about it, and what are some good tips and tricks to make you win. So our run here is over. We recently lost to this very strong guy. I'll walk you through everything that happened in this one, but a quick rundown of the rules. Unlike other formats, what you'll see is that champions stay past fights. For example, the Leica here in the next fight will start not fighting whatsoever. This is a very special format. The energy gets reset. You have very special martial ratings that kind of bring everybody in par, but then still you have very strong players who can use stuff like furniture, signature items, trees, all of that to really shine through. And then you have strategies and counteractions and synergies that are at the top level of PvP. Let's just dive into the first stage, the group stage, so that you understand how to make those decisions when it comes down to it. So in order to get into the group stage, you have to be in average 10th place in your Legends Championship. That's the 3-team arena, and that's pretty hard, especially in those older regions. But if you do manage to ever get there and sustain it throughout, you'll get enough points to get to the group stage. Now let's start by walking through my personal group stage and experience throughout this whole thing to understand what kind of thoughts might come to your head, what kind of counters and special synergies you might see in this format as we go through it to enjoy PvP to the highest level. The group stage is kind of special in the sense that you don't have a lot of information about your opponents. For example, this guy's level 81 tree, I get to see all these. The setups are completely irrelevant though. If I remember right, it's the heroes with the highest rating, but it doesn't tell you anything about their composition. Sometimes you might be able to see something from the details. And for me, this guy's obviously going to be the most threatening. Now, it's going to be ordered by power ranking, and that actually matters because in a case of a tie, and this is in the rules here, it's pretty annoying. I've lost because of this one. So the man that's on the top is going to win. So what's going to happen is after the timer runs out, we're going to run head to head, and you have to configure your formations using the formation page. You can see the enemy formations or any intelligence about them. So for this one, I went for a pretty typical team. My first team is going to be Gwyneth Burst. I'm very happy to have gotten Zorath recently. Still not a Psi 30, but I got a furniture which enables this burst comp, which I really trust, especially when I don't see the enemy comp. It's very reliable. The second team is going to be my modified god comp. Having Saurus with the warrior tree and Athalia cancelling healing and disturbing is something that I think will give me a favorable matchup up to testing against other god comps while still maintaining the power level. And this also allows me to use Celes Graveborn with Talene, a very strong set, losing the Athalia actually it usually would be here, but using Wukong, Talene, Orthos together with Nara and Pharah to enable it. This time I put Nara actually on the top slot and not on the bottom slot, and the reason for that is that the only thing I think might be able to pass through this is Aaron, and Aaron will probably be positioned to pull at whatever it is in the middle, so I want Nara to be able to filter through to be able to grant my other heroes some sort of niche into it. And in 3 hours and 14 minutes we'll see the results on these fights, so we'll know if I qualified, which I think I will, because looking at the enemies, you see lower tree levels than mine overall, you see less hero diversity and less campaign progress. This is usually a good indicator. There's really not that much to do here. Like if you see a very advanced opponent, of course you can expect one of the meta sets, so maybe you can go for a counter meta set. For example, God Destroyer for God comp, the comp wins off. But other than that, if you just see these comps over here, usually you won't have as much intelligence, so you should just go with stuff that's solid overall. God comp does great, Celes Graveborn does great, Burst comp does great, so that's what I'm gonna rely on. And I'll meet you in a couple hours. And guys, I'm checking this live with you. It seems like we passed, just what we like to see. So you'll see the results here. If there is a tie, as I said before, it decided by the highest power in some way. But in this case, we win all the cases, so we see a very clean victory. Now quickly looking over the replays, it seems like the burst comp completely swept this one. For the second one, the burst comp had a very strong matchup, eventually got stopped by a bunch of a weird molly set actually. Let's see this replay over here. So it seems like it started on pretty low HP, and apparently, a pretty strong Brutus. That's something I haven't seen in PvP for a while. Okay, and lastly, of course, the god comp picked off the Brutus and whatever was left. Okay, nice to see. That's what we like to see here. And for the last one, if I remember right, this was the most difficult one as I anticipated. We completely swept it through. We see the burst comp being a very strong general comp that works against most everything when it's not countered. So my piece of advice looking at this qualifies is just pick strong meta formations unless you have very good reason not to. Alright guys, and this is huge, we actually beat Knives. Yes, we did over here with precise reading. He is exactly what we thought he would. Great prediction on our part that he'll keep the setups. The 5-time regional champion that was ahead of me in many senses. If you look at the 3 levels, if you look at the different heroes that he has invested, overall better than I am, but we still got ahead of him. So let's see how we did it. First, our burst comp. So the big things to note here is that his Zorath does not have furniture. So the way that this went, it was pretty smooth. Look here. Now I'd like you to specifically notice Nakaruru that we predicted will be very good against his Lorsan comp. We had our own Aaron bursting him down in both replays over here, as after the reset, our Nakaruru completely prevents the Aaron, as you can see, and allows and enables our whole comp to spiral before his comp gets the Vortex and the pool. So this was really crucial because it kept the majority of our burst comp alive to be able to dent through his Celis Graveborn. And against the second comp, the way that this works is that the HP carries on with you. So any heroes that die carry on to the next fight, any HP carries on to the next fight, carried on our heroes. And with the Zorath reset, we fought against one of his harder matchups, the Celis Graveborn carryless. So as you can see over here, a very strong match on his end, especially since we're already damaged, but we managed to dent it, and Zorath with soon enough reset. Let me speed this up so that you see what happens here. We managed to dent through the comp that lands some crucial damage to let our future comp be able to dent through and eventually filter to win this match. So we got the Wukong, got the Feral, both key, and landed some damage on the Cecilia. Now for the third comp, this was the Mirror Celis Graveborn here, so a very hard match to escape, both sides having very strong heroes overall. Mine were overall stronger, of course, because we weakened his side, but still 3 invaders were able to handle my Feral. But as you can see, eventually the sustain from Talene and other strong heroes landed through. Now this is a pretty important match because you have the God comp. His God comp is stronger than mine, higher sustenance level than mine, and more infested heroes with higher SIs. But as you can see over here, our heroes managed to land a dent in that God comp. It's a pretty strong matchup for us, but still the God comp pretty strong without Mizoth or other counters. So I'm very happy with this result, being able to take down the twins so that the next match, the Mirror God comp match, became much easier than it otherwise would have been. A pretty long prolonged fight between these two sets, but we'll end up losing it because we're already weakened, because our sets are not as strong without the counter heal from Feral to eventually, as you'll see over here, land the kill just in time. Okay, and then there was the final matchup, our God comp versus his God comp, one that I'm very happy about because we did not have Mizoth or anything to that extent, which is pretty strong when you come to counter the God comp. So if you want to get anything reliable, you need to get pretty creative. Here we use Source and the Maitri countering healing, Thalia also engaging and countering healing on her own merit in our own God comp core. So let's see how that went. Without the twins, his God comp starts off significantly weaker. As you can see, Thor spiraling out, and we just out-traded with the value on those mirror matchups. Each mirror matchup that we did, and this is a key tactic to take away, is that we mirrored it and we made ourselves slightly favorable by one mean or another, and we just carried on the fight, and he kept fighting from a disadvantage 2 times that allowed us to completely win this. The Zorath furniture being so key here. He has the SI, I have the furniture. That really made a difference so that the first comp traded favorably, enabling the others. Alright, so beating opponents from behind with key strategies is one thing I don't think I'll be able to pull off again. We'll review this next opponent. Amazing furniture, his almost perfect, likely high level, SI is complete, great hero comp, very niche, Elder Tree at the max level for everything. This is going to be very rough. Again, we're going to have to assume that he's using the same comp because he has high flexibility. Preparing for virtually anything else is going to be very difficult. And also, I know this guy from previous wins. He has a complete record of beating everybody down completely. So we're going to look at this for a second, see what we might find to somehow counter this comp and come up with a composition, hopefully managing to land a dent. But again, guys, this is very difficult. Even if you come up with perfect sets against this kind of a thing, you're hardly favorable by any means. Alright, so for our formations, we're going pretty wild this time, and I'm happy about it. We're gonna do another kind of a mirror matchup here, but we're gonna be pretty clever about it. We're also gonna include many twists, because when you have higher level opponents than you are, going for a mirror matchup, a plain mirror matchup, is not as valuable. That's one thing to know. If you're ahead, you want a mirror matchup because your hero consistency will probably deliver. If you're behind, you want to twist it up, you want to rely on those unreliable mechanics to somehow pull off the win. In this case, we are going for a burst comp, but we replaced the Naka and the Lorsan we originally had with an Athalia. We're hoping that the Athalia disables the backline Aaron that he has long enough. We put our Aaron away from his Saurus way, so we want Saurus to not ruin our Aaron's time. And we also managed to have Gwyneth behind Aaron so that the grouped up enemies, in this case Zorath, Tassian, probably the enemy Aaron, are gonna all be hit by Gwyneth. Meantime, for the last slots, we have Lyca in the front line and Zorath in the back line. You could twist these up, but I'm keeping it this way so that possibly Zorath survives long enough to reset if I actually manage up to die. I think I'm highly unfavorable here, so I think my Zorath mechanic is better, allowing me to have another fight. You know, the more chances that you have to somehow pull off something that's utterly ridiculous, but you never know. For the next team, we're up against his god comp. We picked a Saurus Tassi god comp. I was actually torn up. I was considering to use Mahira, but I really can't give up the faction advantage when I'm this much behind. He has a Rosaline god comp slot. We're gonna hope that our Tassel Saki stun and that our Saurus counter to his Talene is gonna be good enough. Obviously, this also has a lot of value against the enemies in the third set, which are going to be Celis Graveborn. I try to kind of mix and match between these, but obviously it's very hard because even countering one set. So for example, in this one, if we somehow manage to pass through, Twins pulled by Gnar is pretty optimal. But we're focusing one set at a time here, and we're saying, look, Saurus is good in Talene on the comp that we know. We're going to solid stuff like Tassi being good in Celis Graveborn. We're still probably not favorites here, but we're gonna try our best. And lastly, for Celis Graveborn, this is one where I went completely wild in. You see Mythic plus heroes here. So yes, this is going to be the Celis Graveborn with Talene, with Flora. What I'm hoping happens here is I'm hoping that Talene gets pulled by Gnar to somehow sustain through his fight. Obviously he has a lot of counter healing in Feral and Athalia, but I'm trying to have it that way that the match goes on long enough for Flora's haste buffs and debuffs to somehow pull through alongside her damage. I really want Talene to keep my core alive, that being Orthos and Wukong. I was considering who to have pulled, but honestly I want Talene pulled by Gnar to keep her occupied. If I flip it this way, then Gnar will fail to pull Flora and then pull someone else, which I can't afford. Need all my heroes working here. So what I'm doing is I'm hoping that the Orthos Wukong core will somehow be strong enough to survive. Talene will heal them through. Feral's probably gonna drop off at some stage of that fight if I even get to it, but it's hopefully gonna land some crucial disturbance in between, and Flora might be able to be that key piece that does the magic here. It's also pretty good against the second comp, so if you look at the comp order, Burst against Burst, God Comp against God Comp, and Celis Graveborn against Celis Graveborn, I really try to optimize the matches between these. And again, this is only an underdog set at best, and you also gotta remember that it's only a good underdog set if style keeps the sets the way they are. If he changes even the order slightly, then it's a completely different matchup. But that's what we're gonna try, and we're probably going to fail, but we'll have to wait and see. The round of 8 looks pretty easy to do, like these two don't seem too threatening for my judgment. But we'll wait and see, probably just this loss here in just a minute. And we lost this one. It was a nice run though, as you can see, Stalin Relish very strong. By the way, hot fact, Gamco, who I used to compete in the past, is the one that made it through top 8. I've actually beaten him in that fight before, so if I were to beat this somehow, I would likely make it to top 8 and maybe even further, but in this case, Silent Relish was completely sweeping through. The only one that I think is relevant to look here is the one where my Athalia failed. This was a misdoing on my part perhaps. The Athalia here jumps on the Aaron, but the Aaron gets pulled before that. I'll do this again just so that I can see this in slow motion. So the Athalia is about to engage on the Aaron, but as she does, Aaron instantly pulls him forward, and this was just enabling the enemy Zorath to really spiral, eventually taking out my whole team. There was even one reset here, but this was just not enough. Since the complete enemy burst comp was able to sustain on his side with complete furnitures, Eldertree, etc., it just completely impelled to my team. A very bad matchup against a sparse comp for most other teams if it's not dented. So team 2 completely ran through, likewise for team 3, just not really a chance if such a strong burst comp gets through. As you can see, completely invested in all those different ways. Another thing that I did, I don't know if you caught it, is I substituted Flora for the new guy Zephyriel in the last second because she was mythic and I thought maybe it'll be better. In a mirror matchup it might have mattered, but here it was just completely irrelevant because the burst comp is so strong against these comps, especially since this guy is so far ahead. That's no excuse and we'll get him next time. So quick review of the run, we had a decent group stage and then we got knives, which I'm so happy about. We had a very hard matchups, but we made it through and we gave a good fight. So guys, that was my experience. A little sad that I got badly beat like that, but it was really fun overall. I hope it got you the thought process that goes into these kinds of things. Personally, I've had many different experiments and stuff behind the line that I used to try against my friends and guildies and all kinds of private Discord servers to really optimize this. But I hope you get the format, you get the gist of it, you get the fun out of it. I love it. It's the top PvP in the game, and I've been Linker. Peace.